Hey, Sandy, you're able to hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
All right, perfect. I'm going to mute us for a little bit so you don't have to listen to us typing and writing, and then we'll unmute it when we get started.
Okay, let's just double check Sandy there to make sure we have sound and everything. Hello,
Yep.
Sandy?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Just ready.
Me door man and begin with. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so for visitors, speaking visitors, is Tara Baldus going to be here tonight?
I think so. I hope I told her the right
I
time.
was just with her now. She closes the library at 5:30.
Okay,
Oh, sweet.
she'll be up.
Okay, so she'll be here and Tim is here to talk about facilities. And do we have any, I know we haven't doing public comment yet.
No public.
Nobody's written anything yet, so at this time, so that's over. Okay, and Amy's here, another visitor. And that's that. So we'll wait on Tara a little bit and we'll go ahead to a facilities discussion for Tim being here.
There's Tara.
There's Tara, but we'll give her a minute to catch her breath.
So I invited Tim in just to talk a little bit about plans for the summer and what we're doing. I know the parking lot's another discussion that we have. It's kind of later but you certainly can add in any of your input from the parking lot too, if you want. I didn't.
Well, the city was there.
Yep.
Craig was here, and I don't know if you're going to say that later, but I think we can get by with just digging a couple trenches across there, put some tile in, put some fabric around the tile, cover it back up, and I think that'll take care of our soft spots out there. And then if we go ahead with the parking lot, I think whoever does it, come in and rip that stuff off the top and put a layer down. And we talked about running the pavement right up next, same height as the sidewalk. So there's won't be a step there. Might make it a little easier plowing snow and people not tripping on it. But I don't think it's gonna be, I think Craig's gonna, down here in the lower corner of the parking lot, he's gonna put in a catch basin there to catch the water and then put a culvert in and then send it across the road.
So the city's had a culvert there.
Yeah.
It's long time plugged up, but they've had their culvert there. And so they're excited, I think, about the opportunity to kind of re-catch that water and get it going the way it should go.
And then we'll have surface water, of course, but I don't think it's gonna be any worse than it is now. I mean, I think if we get that tile strung across there, we're gonna run two pieces and get some clean rock to throw over it and just, and it might happen if we decide to go with the parking lot, it might happen before we even get the parking lot ripped up and go back, so. But I think we'll have to get hold of readers and get some marsh rock or cash mitters or somebody. Might be a little bit to get the rock here, but I think go to Prime Land and get tile line and I think if we work with the city, because the city wants it paved clean to the edge of the road. And they own some right of way there, I think. So if we work together on some stuff, maybe we can get it paved right up next to the road and then we won't have that dirt dip through there. And then there'll be a kind of a channel there we talked about as far as surface water and stuff run on down towards the east.
Yeah, so the parking lot will be paved the whole way down to the street, just right up to the street. They're, putting in a little kind of swoop, I guess, to kind of catch anything coming off the parking lot, take it down to, in this map, and I'll talk later kind of about just different parking arrangements, but the catch basin will be right down here on this corner of the parking lot. And so that little swoop will just, I get this right. Oh yeah, you can't see the road here because of that tree. But so this is the road coming across. It'll just run down here into this catch basin and then across, diagonally across the road, which is where the existing culvert is. Craig, the city meets tonight. And so Craig was going to visit with the city about kind of their end of it, and we would be paying for the catch basin, but them taking care of the culvert, and then just kind of the connection to the road as well. Right now it's just gravel, right? In that there's about a 10-foot stretch or something like that that's not paved at all, actually. And then a lot of this is just crumbling and continues to crumble and fall
It's
apart.
actually
But
probably there right away.
it
It's
is.
about that 10 foot there.
Yeah. But it would be just kind of continuous paved. And then also in the plan is to actually do some parking, which I think is worthy of a board discussion when we get to that later tonight, just with, if we indeed want that striping, you probably end up fitting a few more people without the striping, because people just invent parking, but it also adds to some consistency, I guess. And just another one of my concerns is I still think right now we have a lot of kids and adults that are crossing in front of buses as school gets out. And then, buses pulling out at the same time. So finding a way to get buses kind of out of that foot traffic area.
I think one benefit of striping is number one, ADA,
Right.
accessibility. Number two, we could maybe have some senior. I'm not saying this because I'm a senior. I'm talking about more seniors than me.
Correct.
Senior parking for athletic events,
That gets them a little closer,
Yeah,
or prioritized parking.
yeah. prioritized parking,
Yep.
something like that. We could do some things like that with striping. I was wondering about that, where the road, I know we're gonna talk about this later, but since you're talking, Tim's here,
It's okay.
where the road meets the parking lot, wherever there's a deal like that, that's where you're gonna have something happen. Is the city gonna be responsible for, because I assume they'll have a schedule where they chip and seal and all that. Will they be responsible somewhat for their?
I would say they would be responsible for their right of way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If we go down into there, but then there's gonna be that zone where it's gonna be
Mhm.
problems, probably.
How many times has this parking lot been paved? Or is this just the first time?
Craig was saying that he doesn't think it's actually ever been like the pure asphalt. What's the name of the other mix that they use?
BST.
BST.
Just put it in their trucks and then roll it
And that was
out.
just the one time.
As far as what we know.
Yeah.
'Cause I was saying back when I was high school, I'm pretty sure it was just a gravel lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and since I've been here, it's had the blacktop BST, whatever it is, and it's just, yeah. So it's something needs to be, and I talked to Jerry one time, and I think where the buses roll up there and park next to the sidewalk there, I think they redid a patch in there. I think they went back to 3 inches or something there at one time, and you can see the difference there. Somebody did something there at one time, just where the buses parked. I think it was coming apart.
Yep. But even now, if you look at where the buses are, it's starting to, crumble all
Oh,
over the place. It really is.
And this winter didn't help it.
No, it's in really bad. It's been in bad shape for a few years, but
And then if we doing the parking lot thing, and I talked to Sean a little bit, we need to do something on the east side of the gym where the teachers park. It's just a muddy mess there. I haul gravel in and then it snows and then we plow the gravel out. We need some kind of parking there for that. It sure keep things a lot cleaner.
yeah, I kind of made an executive decision, and I think, just given the bidding requirements that certainly repaving that whole parking lot there is going to be, that could be a separate project. We're following the rules for that. And then down below would just be, since you're up here, it'd be nice to do this project too. And it would be a separate, smaller project, but not a part of any bid.
Any benefit from down below to just paving all of that, clear up in front of the shop and all that?
Yeah, that'd be really nice. But
It'd be nice, but it'd be really slick in the winter too.
If we can get the parking taken care of, and then
You can.
and then down the road say, hey, we got, because it's gonna take some excavating work and stuff in there. We're gonna pave the whole thing, straighten things out, level this out, get rid of a hole or two, and if we do below the gym, that gives a good place to start. Well, we can, butt right up against here and then go this way and do the rest, because we got some more ideas about the parking lot down there, so. At a later date, or take a little look at it some other time, or, yeah.
And the tile lines you were talking about are to tile up those soft spots.
They're gonna run horizontal, 1 and 2.
Just a thought there, maybe add a third one right up against that sidewalk. If they are thinking water's leaking through the playground blacktop, that water before it gets under any of this.
We got a sewer line coming out of the gym there too, so. But I think if we stay down, and I don't know if you have
I have a
brought
picture.
in there or not, but
You can come up if you want to point.
yeah, there'd probably be one coming about right through here, down to the corner, and then one right up about halfway up and down to the corner.
And down to the catch
So it'll
basin.
catch a lot of that. And the city said they'd help us on that, so I don't think we're gonna have to hire an excavator or anything like that, so.
Thanks.
Any other, I mean, just facilities in general, Tim, as we're going
I mean,
forward?
I know he's got that coming.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
But,
Didn't want to let him out of here easy.
No.
where we plug the buses in between the ag shop and the dumpster, there's 3 plugins there. We have some logs there to help pull the plugins up and stuff. Well, we got in there, cleaned the snow out, and the logs are rotten, and we grabbed one of the plugins and ripped it up out of the ground, and we're gonna have to do something different there. I want to do a little work there and maybe get the plugins a little higher up out of the ground so we can plug the buses in. It'd be nice if we didn't have to plug the buses in. I don't know if Sean talked to you about, we
haven't
have
had
some
that,
ideas
no.
about building a bus garage. Some place where we could park the buses and shut the doors and let them warm up at night, let them unthaw, park them in there in the summer so the sun's not ruining them. And, I talked to Jeff Shacker a little bit. We talked about maybe putting a garage in to hold 4 buses, have 4 doors on it. I could leave the spare buses out if I had a place to park the route buses and an extra bus. We talked about 4 bays, and then we talked about 3 bays. We can't get 3 bays between the ag shop. There's not enough room there for 3 bays. We can park 3 buses there now, but by the time we put a building up and get some doors on it, there's not enough room in there. So we did a little measuring, and where I parked the spare buses now, there's room down there to put a 4-bay bus garage in. So
just so we can look at it.
and if we move the buses away from the ag shop and the dumpster there would be a little more parking for the teachers and, put a little more pavement in. But, I'm gonna have to do something about those plugins there this summer. And I don't know.
So just to make sure, you're talking about still in this area. Do you want to look and see, make sure we're all talking about the same? So this is where we park the buses currently.
Yes, and here's the dumpster. And we can't get a 3-bay garage in here. There's just not enough room because you gotta have a foot between, I wrote it down.
Oh,
Gotta have 18 inch.
Two doors.
Yeah, gotta have 18 inches between the bus so you got something to hang the doors on.
Mhm.
And then we talked about lean-to, but I don't know, it'd be nice to put them in, close the door, and don't have to worry about people getting on them and stealing diesel.
So where are you thinking about putting it then? Because that
Well,
was
we talked about the 4-bay one here is start about right here and then be about where the end of the van is parked there now. About 56 feet for a 4-bay garage. And Kyle doesn't use that lower door on the ag shop anymore, so we could go towards the ag shop a little bit too. And there'd be a lot less excavating to level out a spot there, I think. And if we just put a slope roof on it and then everything would drain,
off the back.
off the back towards the new road that's punched in there.
what do you got behind your shop or your maintenance shop there? I guess, okay. Now that Tom moves it down, there's not a whole lot of room there.
Yeah, this is pretty steep hillside here. Is some room here.
And we talked about that before.
We talked about that.
The hard part is this angle right here to get a
To get
90-degree
to
parking.
back out
in.
of the shop and then turn and take off. Yeah, that we talked about moving that power pole right's there in the way. But there's not a whole lot of room there. Well, we talked about a 56 this way, 40 feet this way.
This shop has a big bay door, and then a vehicle sized door, I guess, on it as well, right?
Right.
It's got two
Yeah.
doors.
Mhm. So,
And then this is the
the
lean-to
lean-to.
where they store some stuff.
So. But yeah, we talked about that. Then we talked about, well, we'll have some regular maintenance summer. I gotta meet up with Susan yet, and we're gonna talk about, like we always do, put some new carpet in a couple classrooms or maybe do a hallway or two. And I don't really know much else. I think I might try to get something done with the security lights in the gym. I don't think they work when the power goes out. So I gotta do some work there. As
Gym
far as
floor.
Major stuff. Yeah.
The parking lot.
Yeah, the parking lot's we could do something there. That'd be wonderful. Sorry, get back to the bus garage thing. Shacker gave me a rough estimate for a 60 by 40 building with 4 doors, concrete and heat, $112,000. He says building is real expensive.
How, you know what, that would compare to like just a lean-to kind of deal?
No, I don't. We could do a lean-to kind of deal. If we put it,
I say that's about 50 a square foot, just a straight pole building is gonna
Yeah.
run you about.
but if we
20
put a lean-to here, I know what's gonna happen. It's gonna fill full of snow and rain, and we had some doors on because everything just.
You're on the
goes in.
downhill.
But, if we did a lean-to thing here, we might get 3 buses in there. But
Just an open but covered.
open but covered, yeah. But this winter, we have the automatic chains on the buses. And if we get a little snow and they run through the snow, well, all the snow wads up there and stuff, and then the chains don't work. It just freezes in there, gets stuck, and I try to pull them in my shop, but a day's not long enough for them to thaw. But if we pulled them in someplace and let them sit overnight, then we'd give us a little more time. But yeah, or the weekend I can leave them in. But yeah,
I'd be surprised if there wasn't some grant money out there. I mean, security reason with buses not being locked up, that we couldn't find some grant money to help. offset
School
the
safety
cost.
and security or something.
and I don't know about the Cramland thing up here. How long they shut that building down, but they promised me the pumps would stay open. But I don't know. I think there's a little mumbling in the background too about trying to keep them up and stuff. So if that happens, we're going to have to put in a
The whole town's gonna.
tank or something, someplace to fill up the buses, and I don't know what the people in town are gonna do, and I don't know, but yeah, you hear all kinds of stories now, so I'm gonna put that down a what if story, so.
Okay, any questions or more questions or anything? Discussion? Thanks, Tim, appreciate it. We will start thinking about that.
Did you have one you want up, Tara? Either picture or?
Perfect, I'll be real quick.
Okay, hi Tara, thanks for
Hi
coming.
there. I'm just gonna set one of these at each table real quick.
So I just wanted to let you guys know about a grant that the library recently received. It was through the American Library Association. And the grant was actually $3,000 to facilitate a community conversation. And our conversation that we decided to talk about are activities beyond the school walls, brainstorming educational and recreational opportunities for children in our community. So we're going to be discussing that on Thursday, March 18th. There's 2 different times. It'll be by Zoom, so it's going to be easy to just log in. So please feel free to share with anyone who's interested in discussing, and we'll figure out what we want to do with our $3,000 and hopefully come up with some good ideas. And that was it.
Thank you.
Where'd the grant come from?
The American Library Association, and also the Association for Rural and Small Libraries. So, yeah, and basically they said if you will facilitate a conversation, we'll give you $3,000 that you can spend to help reach the goals of your conversation. And I said, okay, sign me up. So
Yeah.
So did you write that grant, Tara?
yes, I did.
Yeah. Very good
I like writing grants. I like money.
Yeah, we need a
Yeah.
garage.
So I've
I
heard.
don't know if that's an after-school activity, but
Could it be an
And-
after school?
That's where the buses park after school.
Can we do an after school program and then park the buses?
I was excited, Tara, we wrote a letter of support as a district for the grant when she applied, and excited and ready to have a conversation. I do think the potential for, out of school kind of activities is something that I've heard, many times among community members, whether that's, an after school program or, obviously involved with the library. Other conversations have, been around just kind of general school facilities and how we can better support kind of after school programs. I'm constantly reminded as, my kids are going to youth basketball practice at 7:30 at night or, late at night to try and find gym time. You'd think it would go away when basketball was done with the high schoolers, but, when you get feet of snow, then your spring practices are indoors too, and it's still clogged up. We have that gym busy basically every night still until 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night. And so, even starting that conversation with the community, I think this might be a good opportunity to talk about what it is that the community desires, and if they desire kind of making a long-term investment in the school and the community. So excited about the opportunities that having a conversation will start.
I'm excited to hear what everybody has in mind and see if we can get some momentum and go from there.
Great. Any questions or? Okay, thank you
Thanks,
very
Tara.
much.
Thank you.
All right. We are ready for consent agenda. So I've got minutes and you had minutes in your packets.
Can I go ahead and speak in public comment, or
Oh, I didn't know you had any.
is that okay?
I didn't know either. I'm okay if you're okay. I don't have any concerns with it. Yeah.
Okay.
But
I just-
3 minutes.
I just wanted to follow up, on the conversation I was here last month, with concern about the length of our bus route. I don't want to restate too much what I said because I think everybody's aware of the issues that we've got. But, in short, when we started, when kids started school, as kindergarten, we were getting on just before the bus. We were getting on the bus just before 7 and getting off a little bit after 4, which was a long day for a kindergartner, and that's a 9-hour day. But as things have progressed and things have changed, we're now getting on the bus about 6:40 and getting off about 4:20, and we're bumping up there on a 10-hour day for the kids, and it's just really tough. And I know that there's been some different ideas floated. First, the biggest issue is really getting drivers that are able to run those routes. And I recognize that I'm struggling with the length of the bus route time, but I'm not exactly volunteering to run that route either, so I recognize that we do live a long ways out and it's going to be a long day for our kids. But I think there are some other ways in addition to finding more drivers that could be used to provide relief. And one of the ideas that's been floated is lengthening or shortening the length of the school day. I know no one's very excited about that, but it would be a way to help the community to help share some of the burden in the long school length that some of our routes are seeing. I think there's a lot of other ideas that can be pursued. I've been visiting with Sean about maybe having a brainstorm within the community to talk about, what are our options? We could have centralized bus stops, where maybe everybody meets at Moeller, and we can meet at one centralized location, and that would save total miles on the bus route. It's not ideal for everyone, but we're really struggling as a family with the length of our day. So I guess as we continue the conversation, I just hope that we do everything we can to think about how to provide some relief.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Amy.
We're definitely going to follow up on that.
Yep.
And appreciate your continuing conversation too on that. Okay, board, do you have any questions? Okay, thank you. Moving on to, and thanks for catching me, but we get this public comment system and, but we're happy to have that put into our agenda. Next up is the consent agenda. Like I was saying, I've got financial reports, March bills, and student financial reports. So if anyone has any questions about any of those reports or changes in the minutes, now would be the time to do that. I got a question. On the school lunch, I just wonder if Marcy could explain, the summary one, Marcy, but
Yes.
like it's
Go
page,
down.
huh?
I was telling Sean to go
This-
down.
The school lunch fund, it's page,
To go back up.
They pass it.
I can't even tell where
Right
it's,
there.
There it is.
115, page 15, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just kind of run us through what's going on there with,
Okay, so the school lunch program is operating on what's called SSO, Seamless Summer Operation due to COVID. So we elected to go with that. What that means is we are offering free lunch and breakfast to all kids that are enrolled in school. We are closed facility. Last spring, it was open, it was open to homeschooled students, just little kids in the community, whether they were preschool, I think it was
1 to 18.
1 to
Yeah.
18. So if a kid had graduated, they could still get lunch. But we're closed for this school year because it was too much of a burden on Jenny to fix the meals for the kids that are in school and then have to-go meals for maybe kids that would pick up in the community. So we're closed. So everything is free for breakfast and lunch. You'll notice that, our funds are a little higher because of that. We have probably, since I've been here, the best participation at the elementary level that we've ever had. The secondary, probably not so much because we're open campus. And so you have all of your high school kids that go to the store and eat. So that's kind of what's happening.
So we get paid per meal served
Mhm.
at this point for this year, for the rest of this year at this
so
point.
that's the federal funds then.
Yeah.
It's per
So I anticipate that we'll go back to normal in the fall.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Mhm.
I have one other question. I should know the answer to this, but there was one fund. It's called the ESSER. Oh, okay, I just didn't have my glasses on. I thought it said ESSER, but it's ESEA. I guess that's the one.
Which
ESSER
No,
could
not
be.
ESSER,
There
that's-
is ESSER.
go
Yeah.
up, Sean.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is that ESSER fund?
Oh,
ESSER
there's
fund
lots.
is, a federal grant fund
Oh, here.
that we received due to COVID. There's several
Yeah.
different grants that we've had to keep track of in different places, different fund numbers. The ones that we did, the blended learning, that was the big dollar from last fall, I didn't report on here because it was basically money in and out. The ESSER funds is, the funds are available through September 2022. So we have until then to spend the funds. So we haven't really spent a whole lot of that yet. It was originally earmarked for the leadership premiums. But we're kind of on hold waiting to see
Yep.
what the legislature does, the governor's reinstating that 5% holdback if it includes the leadership or not. So then we'll have those funds for something else. So that's what it is.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
There's about 5 different federal funds, more coming because we now have a new one. And then if this latest round, there'll be more funds that are all kind of in different pots,
There's
have different dates to be spent by, have different requirements about what you can spend them on.
there will also be an ESSER fund too.
An ESSER 2 fund, yep, that's right.
Okay, well, we'll keep an eye on that then.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Well, we can entertain a motion for the consent agenda. Half an hour into our meeting.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Seconded, Quinn.
Thank you. Motion second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Is there anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? That passes then. Thank you. Okay, first we'll go to our action items. The first one's a supplemental levy, which you have in your packet form for that. I think I've
Can get it to load. Oh, that's too far. So there's the language after sitting down with Marcy, kind of looking at where we're at. My recommendation to the board is that we just continue to maintain our supplemental levy at the current level. I know it's now been a decade where this is, as you know, approximately the same price as it's been. It was a decade ago or more. At that 445, it was actually, for a few years, it was up above that amount and then got pulled back to 445. I think it allows us to continue in operations as we've been going. There is certainly, I guess there's been some level of federal funds that have come in. A lot of those that we've expended have been directly towards kind of coronavirus relief. I know this isn't budgeting time. The ESSER 2 funds is the latest round. Most of the other stuff is either pretty small amounts or has been obligated kind of for coronavirus response. The ESSER 2 funds, which we haven't seen yet, but are approved and kind of in the pipe, will amount to about $70,000. That, some thought in my mind was to recommend, well, perhaps taking some off. That money can be used specifically for kind of remediation due to the effects of coronavirus. And what I would like to do next year is to use that money to hire a staff member that would be able to provide specifically some math remediation and help to our district in a certified type position that could that would help us kind of continue to push forward. Math is such a difficult, just to kind of up our performance, particularly probably in the secondary level, and continue to push forward with our math. So that's one piece that I have. But so currently, that is my recommendation, is to keep the levy at the same level that we've had it.
Okay, thank you.
When people ask about the levy, I guess you know, there's a few things that the levy does is kind of specifically funds. We are under, we're funded less by the state for the amount of staff that we have. So we're over on our kind of our staffing allowance from the state. In my mind, the levy helps to pay for that overage a lot because of our size. You know, if you were to ask the state, they'd probably tell us we need to combine, especially in our elementary, we need to combine classrooms to get back down to what they have for a staffing allowance. I think our community has, for a long time, not supported the idea of combining classrooms as the benefit to our kids. Some of those levy funds go to just kind of general operations. Obviously, the pool has never operated in the black by itself, so there's expenses there. The preschool that we offer is another example of what we do with our current levy. You cannot use the state funding to pay for those salary and expenses. And so those are a couple of the ways that we utilize the levy.
Terry may have been hard when, but I know Jackie remembers when we proposed combining classes in elementary following the Clarkston model. And it's the only time I've been on the board that had people come and say, please raise the levy, whatever it takes. We don't want that. So I don't know how they feel right now, but they were, the community was pretty strongly like the way we were doing things without, like Sean said, without going to combine classes and such. But anyway, that's just a story for another time. Does anybody have any questions? Any board members have questions about the amount, or would you like to discuss whether or not to have that amount, or a higher amount or a lower amount? Now would be the time to, we can bring that up.
The mill rate, and I don't have those numbers, but our mill rate generally runs maybe low middle compared to districts in our region. Most of the schools that are lower than us when it comes to a mill rate have that, the federal forest funds. I can think of, Cottonwood would be an example of that. Most of the schools of our district size, Highland runs, approximately $100,000 more a year. Kendrick runs almost $1 million levy a year. Trying to think of other, same with White Pine in Deary. So I do think, for a small district, I think our levy amount is very comparable and competitive with other school districts in our region, especially.
Any questions? Because we'd like them all to go away and have the state fund schools in an equitable and full manner. That's not going to happen right away. So I think that, we have really tried to be in tune with the community. There's been a couple times we've actually lowered it, to, of course, it's up from, what it has been years ago, but it is got maintained a real level operation in the last few years.
I guess the other plug, as we're looking at, as Marcy and I visit about budgeting, is that we for a couple of years, we kind of dipped below that 2 months of operating cost, approximately 17 to 20% to have in, I guess reserve is kind of a dangerous word. It's not like we're holding it back, but we want to be smart so that if state funding is held up or something like that, we're not having to go to a bank to say, hey, can you forward us, can you lend us some money for a month so we can make payroll? So the best accounting recommendation is to keep at least in that 20% range of kind of money that you have available to be able to cover monthly bills and all those other things. We dipped below that for a couple of years and expect to kind of be at or above that level now. So.
Okay. If you don't have any questions, we're going to need a motion to set the levy And then we can move forward. I know it's not the most popular one to make.
I'm the one that made that
I move to
motion.
Set the levy as proposed.
Thank you. That's $445,000. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Sandy.
Thank you, Sandy. So Quinn moved, Sandy seconded that we set the levy at the amount of $445,000. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Is anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Then it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, next up is the school calendar.
So I don't think we've actually, have we made a motion to set the school calendar? That's why I added it. So a couple of pieces. Certainly appreciate Amy's testimony and the conversations that I've had with her. I'm sorry I have not got a committee together to kind of talk about it yet, but that is most certainly in the works, and I think it's a good idea. I know Tim and I have a couple of people now. We've been scrambling to find people that are in the works as far as training, and one that maybe even was testing today. Was it today? I didn't ask how it went, so I won't do that in public. But so a couple of people in the pipe. Ultimately, with the school calendar, I think that's the thing that's most important to kind of get in place and get by the board with that. I don't think, as we talk about adjusting days, I think we still have some time. I mean, I don't think adjusting the length of the day is necessarily that something has to plan ahead for like a, if you're going to take your family for a trip or, planning out your Christmas vacation next year or something like that. So getting this calendar set, and then we would continue to have a discussion about the length of the school day specifically. And if there's adjustments that we want to make. I think after last meeting and kind of presenting that information, that really probably the maximum, given the feedback that we got, that we would want to consider shortening the day is about 20 minutes, because otherwise, to meet state requirements, you're going to be adding days somewhere if we don't do that. So that certainly is still on the table. It wouldn't be off the table. This would just be setting the days when we're in session and the days when we're out of session. This is no other adjustments. We made that adjustment with the fair. Remember, I brought that up at the last meeting to adjust it to the last or the first weekend in October, I guess is what it is.
Good. Thanks. Then we'll restrict our discussion to the calendar here, not day length at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And does there have any questions or comments or changes or anything about the calendar as it's presented here?
It would be just a quick summary. In session, August 31st for the high school students, September 1st for the elementary, and out of session June 3rd. The only other major change was that we shifted some of the professional development days to balance them better now that we're not in the and move the high school semester and like we did this year to third week in January.
They already, when do they set up football games? In the spring?
Football games are already scheduled, I believe. Yeah, I don't know where they are, but I think all that work is done.
Hopefully we don't have, well, we probably have one because they, we probably have one on the fair now.
That could be. I'll have to check with Callie about that.
Okay, well, anyway, and if we don't have any questions, we could entertain a motion to approve the calendar.
Yeah, I have a question.
Oh, sure.
Sean, I hate to interrupt. Are you starting elementary on one day and then high school again on another day?
We still are, just by a day off. Yep, same as we did this year. And I know how Tim feels about it, so it's good.
Yes, by his look.
And certainly you can add if I don't represent it. Tim we've had conversations before about, the kind of a consistency of starting on a single day. and having the bus drivers just run their route. I guess my argument, and I think the bus drivers would prefer that. I also am balancing that just with our staff and kind of their needs. We are certainly over on the number of elementary minutes that we have to, that we need to meet for by like weeks at this point. And so I also think that at the beginning of the year, their elementary prepping for kids to come is different than secondary. There's a higher level of work that's required. And I've had a lot of conversations with Jackie about this too, in being ready for the elementary students. And the other big argument for me is I've watched, and I've been the principal, and I've watched Jackie with, you know, a start with K-12. It's hard enough being a K-12 principal in this building and kind of managing the beginning of a school year. And it takes a lot of face-to-face time with kids and setting up expectations and getting ready for learning. And to split it by a day means that our principal and really our staff and myself included can focus on, you know, half of the kids for a day and kind of get them tucked in and get that day going. Jackie can be involved with high school ASB and they can have programs and activities on that first day. And then she can, you know, go home at 10 o'clock that night, turn off the lights and come back and do it all over again. But it's a lot easier day. It's a lot easier to split it up than it is to, and at the end of the day, I don't think it impacts student learning. I think our bus drivers still get paid for running that route. So we're not chopping off some pay for the bus drivers. They're still running the route. It's just that route's a little shorter. I do think, you know, Tim makes a good argument, and I've talked to the bus drivers too. There is, you know, it's nice when you're starting a year to just, okay, here's the routine now, and we're going to follow this routine. It is a little disjointed on that first day to say, okay, bus drivers, you're running this special secondary only route, right, to kick things off. And then, by the way, tomorrow it's going to be completely different, and we're going to redo it the way it's going to be the rest of the year. So I do recognize that argument. In the end, my feeling is that we're best served by splitting the start. But I don't know if you have anything else to add in your thoughts, because I know we don't agree, and that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine.
Well, the first day of school is such chaos anyway. It's hard to figure out who's right and who's not. Yeah. So we go out in the buses, and so it's just elementary kids. Well, you go out there, and then you say, well, you get out there, well, no, I'm bringing my kids in today, but be here tomorrow because the high school kids are coming. And I don't know. It's just first day of school for me. Go out, run the route, stop at the houses. It's a done deal, and come in. I can see Sean's point there too. So,
Thank you. Okay, you've heard that comment. Any? Looking for a motion.
There's also just in that vein of thinking, that December 17th, which is the last day before Christmas break, is a high school only day. And again, I think generally that's about meeting the high school requirements. And then the elementary does not ride on the buses that day. They don't have school. And we've used that day specifically for some professional development for the elementary teachers. We've done science with it. We've done some social emotional learning stuff with it in previous years.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and move to approve the calendar for 2021, 2022.
Thank you. Carrie made the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Quinn, second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Is there anybody opposed to the motion? Abstain from the motion? Then it's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next.
School closures.
Oh yeah, okay. Move. See school closed. We had 2 of them? Or
3 of them
3 of them?
total. Yeah.
3 of them.
So we're now tied for any COVID closures. The snow's just as bad. Just kind of a review, and if you guys have any questions about that process, I generally am up those mornings. A couple of years ago, I bought a little radio so I can listen to the road district from my bed without having to get up too much. But up around 4:30 in the morning on those mornings, not every morning, just kind of checking with Tim and Jackie and the road districts. The road districts really carry a lot of weight in the decision, honestly. And then, so after road districts, then a conversation with Tim. You know, if the road districts think we can get through, then just a conversation with Tim. Do you agree? And then we go from there. We actually, on the 25th, wasn't it? The 25th, I think we ran that route early out Central Ridge. We got a call. It kind of surprised me. It was sunshiny here, a little bit of a wind, steady wind, but it wasn't too bad. And the Central Ridge, that route, the road district called us and said, can you please get the kids on the road early? So we sent them out about 2 o'clock. Most of it was kind of caused by wind, but our goal is to have a decision out by 6 o'clock at the absolute latest. I think on all of these calls, we had a message go out to parents we had already actually made the decision, and I stalled until 5:30 to let people sleep in a little bit before we sent the district message. I think they were all right about 5:30 is when they were called. So that's it. And Quinn asked last time, what happens if you don't approve it? I didn't ask the state, but
It's kind of a groundhog day.
Yeah.
You gotta go back.
Yeah.
and Do it over again.
Figure out a way when you let us know in the morning, that my phone doesn't blow up.
Yeah.
Email.
yeah.
Okay, we're gonna need a motion to approve the emergency closures.
I'll move to approve the emergency closures.
Thank you. Go ahead and move. Do we have a second?
Carrie will second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Anybody opposed to the motion? Anybody abstain from the motion? Then it passes unanimously. Thank you. Next up is the announcement for valedictorian
Oh yeah.
and salutatorian.
Okay, so I can keep it short. Proud of the kids that I'm going to list according to our policy at 7 semesters for these seniors. A decision is made about valedictorian and salutatorian. The other piece in our policy is that they have to be a full-time student their junior, senior year here at Nez Perce to qualify. So without a whole bunch of ado, congratulations. My recommendation is that Caden Horton, now I gotta get this right. Madison Brower is the salutatorian for the Nez Perce School District, and for valedictorian, it would be Casey Wall and Caden Horton. They have some speaking duties at the graduation, but their GPAs warrant those honors from the board.
That's great. Congratulations to them, and we'll see what they have to say. Hopefully everything will be normal and we all have a regular old graduation by then.
Yeah,
We'll see, I guess.
I planning on it.
Yeah, me too. We need a motion to approve that.
We've always done it as a motion.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's legally
Well, it's
required,
kind
but
of
it's,
yeah.
a pat on the back from the board for a job well done by those girls.
Probably better not have
Well, Quinn's got a niece, so.
Good, and I'll make the motion if it's all right to accept our valedictorian and salutatorian.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sandy. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? That's unanimous. A person, because we're proud of them. So good job. And extend the board's congratulations. Okay. ISBA winter policy updates, got them in your packet.
Skip.
And everybody's like, I don't know, I kind of read through them. I don't know, is there about 12 of them or something?
Yeah, 12 sounds close. Kind of go through them here and just kind of,
See our first reading.
yep, go through really quick.
Yeah.
This is the one advantage, as we're still not quite done with policy stuff, that as we get these updates, which come out quarterly from the ISBA, that it's really easy now to plug in. The numbers are all the same. We won't have to copy and paste anything. Just Marcy can make any edits or changes. So the first one is 2700P, which is our high school graduation requirements. We have something a little different than this standard ISBA policy. So this would take a little bit of editing, although at least the numbers line up. The big change here is the 2021 school year, the senior project is not required by the state of Idaho. My recommendation, and this was before last year, I recommended not adopting this also. We do have a local requirement for the senior project. We've kept that going. I am incredibly proud of the level of rigor in our senior projects. They're very, very meaningful. They're very, very high quality. I think you could compare them to any senior projects around the state as far as what we ask our kids to do with the portfolio that they develop. And so my recommendation is that even though it is not a state requirement this year, nor was it last year, that we just maintain the senior project as is for our local group. 3060, and I'm just reading off the ISBA, but just so that you all know, this amends a definition related to which pupils are covered. So 3060 is just education of homeless children. Right here is where the language is. An unaccompanied student living in any circumstances described in clauses 1 through 3 above. So it just kind of clarifies that. This is a required change to required policy with federal law, and so I do recommend adoption of 3060 and the edits there. 3085, scroll down here. Get to it right here. 3085 is sexual harassment, discrimination, and retaliation policy specifically for students. And the revision adds a reference to the appropriate procedure, which was just a mistake in the original version. So my recommended adoption of that technical change here, it just referenced the procedure 3085P that we follow. 3503C and F. This is related to testing students and staff for COVID-19. This is a model policy and the consent form for those offering on-site COVID-19 testing. After a conversation with Carol at the Public Health District, we do have test kits available. They came just too late. I mean, they're just sitting there now and we haven't had to use any, knock on wood. My recommendation for COVID-19 testing is that all of it, we do have testing kits. Right now, you can go anywhere you want basically and get a test when you want it. The kits that we have are PCR based. They ship, you could administer them at home, and then you ship them off to a lab in Boston, I think it is, Massachusetts, and they will email you the results with it. It takes about 2 to 3 days between the overnight shipping and them running the test. Maybe it's a little quicker even now. My thought is that we probably won't end up using, they're called vault tests. I doubt we use any of them because there's enough testing availability. So I don't see any real need for an in-house testing policy. So 3503C and F. So recommend just not adopting at this point. I'm going to skip down then to 4120. And remember, those C ones are just kind of temporary ones for when COVID is done, we can dump them. Anyways, 4120 is a grievance procedure. There's Title IX has changed. Scary things about Title IX is it went through a big change with the last administration. And as I'm like looking at a new presidential administration, federal administration, it's very likely that we're going to be seeing guidance from the Federal Department of Education that changes stuff back, that adds new things. And so as administrations change and they come up with these rules, but for now, they are updating this grievance procedure specifically for sexual harassment amongst students to comply with the current Title IX guidelines by the Federal Department of Education. So my recommendation is to adopt until we tackle it again in a few months. Let's see, where am I at? 4605. 4605 is student teachers. This just kind of came at request of other school districts. I don't see it as a necessary adoption. We don't see a whole bunch of student teachers. And I think that we might not want such a rigorous process. The process of considering a student teacher may include the following steps: submission of an application, an interview by building principal. A lot of that stuff's built in to a student teaching experience, and I just don't know that it's necessary for us. So again, on 46.5, I guess I would leave it up to board discretion. I don't see anything in there that would necessarily harm us. I just also don't know that it's a necessary policy. 4600P is an optional update that just, oh, it's not even in here. Yeah, you're right. I just missed it because I didn't even look at it. I don't know what 4600P is, but I wouldn't recommend adopting it yet. 5400C, this is a coronavirus policy. So their explanation, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which is one of the funding that we get, expired at the end of 2020. And so they've removed the appropriate section from it that expired, and that's this emergency paid sick leave. We still have in our negotiated agreement, that if you are asked by the district as an employee to quarantine or stay at home, that those days will be paid leave days. So it's not just if you're sick, it would be if you have a confirmed exposure or an actual positive test, and the district or the school district or the health district asks you to. So I don't, taking these things out is fine. You could take them out. It's not going to, there'll be nothing in here that overrides what we currently have for a negotiated agreement with it anyways. I guess that's what I'm saying. So the fact that we could take it out because it's no longer federal law wouldn't change that. My recommendation, I guess, would be just to adopt it, make the change, but recognize that it's not actually going to change how we do leave. 7218. This update reflects changes in the federal awards, uniform guidance requirements, micro purchasing amount. This is with a federal grant, increased from 25,000 to 30,000. So I recommend it's required is how they listed it. Just fixes that from 25 to 30,000. Same with 7450P. I recommend adoption. Again, in that uniform grant guidance. 7455, keep scrolling down. The update reflects recent changes in the federal awards guidance. Again, with this micro purchasing amount, it just basically, if again, it's kind of like our bidding process with the parking lot, but this is different for federal grants. There's just less restrictions, and we might as well move up to the amount that's allowed by federal law. So I recommend adoption of 7445. And then 8605 is just kind of some minor technical adjustments, and I'll get down to it so we can look at it if you haven't had a chance to yet. So 8605 is in the technical, the district receives, we don't have a Freedom of Information Act request. It's just a public records is what we call it in the state of Idaho, public records request. What else do they have on there? On page 5, it updates the fiscal funding retention record to match with IDEA Part B. That's for special education students. And on page 6, it outlines a suggested record retention for distance learning. So that would be new to us. So there's the page 5, or this is the page 6 for distance learning. Distance learning instruction that is recorded by the district. Such recording is not required by this policy. I would recommend that we just, it says until 1 month or 2 months following the end of the trimester. I think we would keep it for a month after the trimester for any distance learning instruction that is recorded by the district. So that would be, you know, a teacher teaches a class online and records it. Once it's recorded, it's, you know, public record, but we would just retain it for a maximum of a month after the semester. Right now with our live classes, we really don't record or retain or record classes. That is it.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? I have one comment on the student teacher one. I think adopting it might be a good idea because it does have some like base expectations included. You know, should we have somebody not paying attention, that will something, and especially since we don't do it very often, it's actually might be a reason to have the policy.
Okay.
But it's up to the board. That's first reading. We'll reconsider that next time. Thank you for guiding us through it. Mercifully short policy discussion. Not that I don't love policy just as much as the next person. Okay, we're ready for that's it on action items. We're ready to discuss the parking lot.
But you have to, oh, it's just first reading.
Yeah, it's first reading.
You skipped the school reopening.
Oh, well, I thought there
Well,
was.
who wants to talk
I
about
looked
that?
at that thing every month.
Yeah.
I'm tired of it, but let's go ahead and go back to, thank you, Marcy.
Sorry.
Item D, school reopening operating plan and amendments and changes.
So I was waiting, there is one piece, I guess, if the board wants to discuss, and the CDC was supposed to come out with something last week and then came out with it today. My recommendation still, I visited with Carol again today, is to kind of stay the course. And when I've been talking to people about it, I do think as a board and especially as a superintendent, we want to continue to monitor and really have our ear to the ground when it comes to our community and what their feelings are. I do think that's important. I guess I'll reiterate a little. I know I've said it at other board meetings. When we formed this plan, we had 3 goals. One is to keep kids in school, in person for learning as much as possible. 2 was to keep our staff and students safe. And 3 was to keep our community safe. So as we've kind of navigated that, if I jump to the second goal, which was to keep our staff and students safe. And when I talked to the staff about this just recently too, I said the same thing. I believe, you know, the best scientific evidence tells us that with kids, this virus continues to be a relatively safe virus. Certainly there are some risks to everybody with every virus. But particularly, you know, 18 and down, the really negative effects are very comparable or perhaps even less than the seasonal influenza for that age group. So I think that's a check mark that our kids are pretty safe. Also, I think now our staff has had the full opportunity to get vaccinated if they wanted to at this point. And so I do feel like while we don't have every staff member vaccinated, they've had the option if they wanted to do it. And so I do think that our staff is, again, relatively safe. If I was putting a check mark, I think I could put a check mark on 2 pretty easy at this point. Number 1, staying in person. And again, this was the conversation with Carol. You know, if kids aren't wearing masks or there's adults that aren't vaccinated that aren't wearing masks, and there is a case that comes into our school, then that will result in a public health district recommendation that those students still quarantine for up to 10 days with a test, up to 14 days still if they don't want to get a test. So that, as far as if the goal is to keep kids in school, our current masking levels, which is, you're required if you don't have that 6 feet of distancing, is still appropriate to keeping kids in school. The other piece is the third one, which is keeping our community safe. My thought on this, and I do think it's important to kind of verbalize it and make it public, because you don't want an ongoing pandemic forever. This virus isn't going to go away. And so it will always be there. And a question that people ask fairly is, well, when can you take off the mask? And for a long time, the CDC was like, who knows how long we're going to have to keep wearing masks. I do think I kind of set the bar, and I visited with Carol about this, as when our community kind of has everybody in our community has had an opportunity to get the vaccine, not the virus. Don't get the virus. When everybody in our community has a chance to get the vaccine, which, the president of the United States said now that that's likely in May, that when everybody who wants a virus can get it. When that happens, I do think then at that point, it's a risk that people are taking and willingly taking at that point. If they've elected not to get vaccinated, then at that point, we don't have that same concern about protecting our community. We don't want to be the source of spread. And it is still possible for the school to be the source of spread at this point. So those are my thoughts. I know there are other school districts around that are lifting some requirements and just kind of going right back into the way things were. I understand that temptation fully. On that side, our cases in Lewis County are really low. Our cases in the town of Nez Perce and the surrounding area are really low. We had a case today in Lewis County, but that was the first one in more than a week or two. Yeah, I think it was 2 weeks. But the virus hasn't stopped doing what that virus does and wants to spread. And these things come in waves. My recommendation is to continue to be vigilant. I strongly believe that we're not harming students with our current practices in any ways. They are here in person. I'm ready to start taking the mask off too. The CDC, the only other thing I was going to throw out there, if we wanted to make it a part of the operational plan, the CDC guidance that came out today says that people who are vaccinated can be in a room with other people who are vaccinated without wearing a mask at all. They say if you're vaccinated and you're exposed to the virus, you can continue to work just fine. And it actually says that a person who's vaccinated can be unmasked in a room with someone who's not, and their guidance says one household is what they say. So you can be in an indoor space without a mask with someone else who's not vaccinated, as long as it's just one household.
I think they also said lower susceptibility people.
Yes.
In a single house.
Yep,
So
lower
younger
susceptibility. You're right.
people.
Yep. In a single household. Now, our classrooms wouldn't meet that single household requirement, and that would be what my recommendation is. But if the board was interested, I still try and wear my mask as much as possible, and most certainly out and about with the kids. And I've had people ask me, well, why are you still wearing it? You've been vaccinated, you've had the coronavirus. Really, the data is showing that people are vaccinated. Well, some can still get it. They're not going to spread it as much because they're asymptomatic. But I still think it goes back to that kind of protecting our community and making sure that we're not adding to that spread that we do. So I guess one thought for the board is that we could kind of incorporate that CDC guidance for our staff, that if it was, at this point, a staff meeting with vaccinated staff or a staff meeting, where only like one person was unvaccinated, that masks wouldn't necessarily be required at this point. And I didn't write in any of that language because I hadn't seen any CDC guidance yet, but that's it.
Okay, thanks.
Just to clarify right now, Sean, so if the kids can be 6 feet apart, masks are not required.
Yeah, and that's what I see that all the time in our school building, and really kids aren't wearing masks all that often. I mean, I see the secondary more than the elementary, but they wear masks in the hallways transitioning. And then most of the time they're seated apart. We've got that kind of plan for where they sit, and they don't have to have a mask on in the classroom. So I don't know if any kid's wearing the mask like all day long, or even a large majority of the day in any classroom. Elementary wise, they're still, that's another thing that I thought about. They're still in these pods for elementary school. And I know they're kind of clamoring for like, can we please just mix with students from other grades? We're still kind of keeping that protective barrier. We still have the fans going with the air filtration and the UV light at night for treatment. All of those things are kind of still in place. And we're still currently under yellow. I mean, that's, I thought before about, moving back to green, kind of showing that we're moving there, but it's the piece, really the big change when we moved from yellow to green was this requirement that if you're going to be within 6 feet of somebody that you're wearing a mask. And that is the easiest conversation to have with the health district. That's our policy, and our kids have not been made to quarantine when we've had cases. And we haven't had any other outbreaks that stemmed from any of that. Really, like when I was talking to Carol today, we've had 2 outbreaks, I guess you would say. We had one that was very clearly it was staff only. It was late October that we had a couple of cases. And then we had one when I got sick that I personally believe there's no scientific evidence for it, but came from an athletic event, because we had high schoolers, we had staff members and other adults that were all at that event that got sick all at the same time. Other than that, that's been it. We've stopped any other additional spread.
Currently, I mean, if we just leave it the way it is, you could make the adjustment as far as the
I could.
CDC thing just fine. I
Yeah.
mean, you got the authority to do that. If you want to make some adjustments for faculty meeting, that you got.
And this plan allows me to make some changes and then bring them to the board for board approval at the
Right.
next meeting. So
Yeah.
there's no need to.
If the board wishes to do something, at this point, we're covered if we do make those changes recommended by the CDC, but otherwise continuing the course. It sounds like it's pretty dialed in right now, and it is, still protecting. I think that critical point of not bringing stuff home into the community, where the community is not vaccinated, there's still some susceptible people. It's a good point.
It is tough, and as I have my ear to the ground, I mean, there's probably more conversations about, and there will probably be more as other districts change their requirements about, well, why do we still have to do this when nobody else around us is doing the same thing? And I don't know, as board members, if that's what you're hearing. I guess that's why it's probably, a discussion if you are. We don't want to get to a point. Our community has been amazing at kind of taking these recommendations and putting a lot of trust in the board and the administration and our staff. But we also don't want to get to a point where people have pitchforks and they're just completely sick and tired of it. It's part of the job is making sure we know what our constituents are saying and where they're at, but also leading through that by the best practices that we think we can put in place for our kids and community.
I don't know how many people I've heard, I'm so done with this.
Yeah,
That doesn't necessarily mean it's done with us,
Yeah.
I've heard more of, let's get rid of the masks than I have keep them, but I
Yep.
have heard a few people tell me
Yep.
they'd like to keep what we're doing too. But by far, most of them would rather just see
I think
them all 100% go away.
I would like
As long as
to.
they're not having to wear them 100% of the time, just commingling.
Yeah.
Then that's not too bad. I mean, I'm not 100% sure what Idaho requires, but I know Oregon, Washington, you go to a restaurant, you get up to walk
Go
to the
to
restaurant,
put on your
you
mask.
gotta put your mask
Yeah.
on, but when you're sitting down, you're okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it's reasonable to stay the course another month and revisit it. I mean,
Thank
And
you.
yeah, if health department tells you different, then I guess you have the power to
Make a shift.
shift in between.
Okay, let's see. Yep, all those are done. Now, we are definitely ready to talk about the parking lot again, at least as far as the bids go.
Just going to show you, so finalized document from JUB yet, but I was just giving you a little update there. So there's no action on this item. Let me make sure I have the right thing up here. Not that. So I think we covered quite a lot of it, but I just wanted to kind of throw this out to the board for their thoughts. One of the issues with our parking lot is if you've been there during a basketball game, it really can't fit everybody that wants to be there. And I don't know, none of this is going to fix that problem. And I was a little nervous with the painting of stripes because I'm like, I know how people can park close. Whether painting actually helps with the number of people we can fit in or hurts, I'm not sure. They came up, this is actually the last as we've been talking to him, but this was their split this is, going to be perpendicular parking. It would create about 32 spots here and 32 spots here. He shows this, the blue with a little bit of overhang. That's actually in that city road right away. So even right now when we park 2 and then 2, we end up just hanging out a little bit. This is a little bit longer document that they're working on, and this shows some of that planning, but he also, playing around with some of these type of arrangements, they've adjusted, stuff. This ends up, with some ADA parking, but also cuts down on the number of spaces available with diagonal parking. We've talked about the bus loading zone on this side, and I haven't followed back up. Tim, we talked when it was there, but we were going to maybe try it out was our last conversation. This is on a little bit of a slant. One of my concerns is, kids and adults coming off of here and walking in between the buses to get to cars. So looking at something here. Also long-term, and they were going to take a look at it. Let me go to the map here. Long-term, another thing that I've thought about as far as bus loading, and I know what happens when we cut down trees. We've done it once before and we heard about it, but I do think that perhaps taking out some trees and paving this area as a bus pickup and loading zone would do an awful lot to free up our parking lot. It would give parking space to visiting buses who want to use that. It could potentially be used as parking space, like diagonal parking space during swimming lessons or other things like that too. So I don't think, there'd have to be some work done. There'd have to be some terraforming.
Yeah,
and
we could do like some of the other districts and just put a road closed sign here when the buses are low.
Right. Yeah.
And I think we could get away with that pretty easy.
Yep.
Just close this road off from 7:45 to 8 in the morning, and then.
Right, you'd have to go around.
Three.
So some diagonal parking arrangements we visited about. This is another with the bus loading zone up front that they came up with. This only has, 3 rows, basically, your front and your rear. We talked a little bit about, Tim, when we were visiting, about kind of crowding the bus loading zone a little bit. He didn't like that idea very much, but to kind of prevent cars from like going around the bus.
Yeah, while we're unloading or loading.
Yeah. And then again, this was more bus loading. My general thought, and then this is the last one that they sent us, Tim, this is the one you haven't seen yet, but this would put some parking, since we're going flush, that would go right up against the gym. It would give us some handicap space here. And then, so we'd still get the same number of rows total, and we'd keep it off of here, and our bus loading zone would be here. Now it's going to be a little difficult because you'd have to come through here and then get a bus up into this corner, but we could fit 3 buses, he thought, here when he's got the measurements. But so that's another idea. I don't think like the board has to motion to approve anything. It just, if you guys had any other thoughts about one, my plan right now is to do striping, since we're going to do it, and have it a little more organized. One thing that, 2 weeks ago when we had youth sports, I think one of the helpers pulled up to dump stuff off and pulled up right to the gym to, kind of unload some stuff and get set up. Well, parents start showing up and they see a car parked up against the gym. And by the time I got to the game, it was like Wild West. Like, we don't have any stripes. The snow was gone, but it was just, people kind of these figuring out on their own how to park, which isn't necessarily a good thing either. But so I think striping would help. We've done we had a concrete thing with signs say don't park on this side of the sign. This would help. We wouldn't have to have those. They kept getting knocked down and rolling into other people's cars. And I was kind of worried about district liability for that. And so I had Tim put some metal signs in. Of course, those don't last very long. You're not hurting someone else's car, but you drive over it in the middle of the night and never to be seen again. So I think it would help we don't have to have poles standing up out there or something. Did you admit it? Yeah. In the day, during the day. Yeah.
I don't know what size those are, but about a third or so of the rigs here at a ball game are pickups,
Right.
big pickups. And some of those, sometimes they make those things so tight, it's really hard to get in now.
Yeah.
Well, they try to park, up there where the small parking spaces are, and they take up way too many parking.
I'll have to visit with you about this one. And if you think you can be able to sneak a bus into that corner. Even.
So that deal along the sidewalk that would be a long-term thing. We're not talking about anything.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's right away too there. I
Yep.
think.
There's a lot to consider there.
That, there on the side where the trees are, does that grass really get used for anything? From the pool down to the street?
It gets mowed.
Yeah.
So I remember back when we were in grade school, we weren't allowed to get that far out.
Our kids, we've spaced out a little bit more, and they play $5 or catch football right out in this area. They're not to go past this kind of pool line.
Well, a little bit.
They might sneak, as they're playing football. They're not, we don't have any fencing or any other controls over here. So the kids know that rule and they follow it pretty good. But so this is really unused space.
That's kind of where they were talking to splash pad at one time.
Yep, right down here below that. This gets used a little bit more. And especially right now as we've got kids in kind of areas, it gets used.
But it wouldn't be a big loss to lose that.
Yeah. My thought is if you had it here long-term that, kids would come out of the elementary building, that's the primary concern. They'd walk right down the sidewalk, take this right, and then just load up on whatever bus was sitting there. No traffic, no worries there would be no reason for someone to walk down here and then cross in front of a bus. A bus driver wouldn't have that concern. Right now, that's not the case. And those buses, you need a lot of feet out in front to be able to see somebody. It's tough, even looking forward, and back's even worse. But getting the buses right here along this stretch would have probably the same effect. The only thing is you're loading kind of at an angle because this is all downhill. And it gets this is kind of a funky little thing. We were talking about that with them. It's really steep here for a second. It just dives off to get down to the other sidewalk. So.
Well, and then, we're talking about maybe over another bus route. So maybe
4 buses, yeah. He says you can fit 3 along that stretch. We should go try and park 3 buses there and see what it looks like.
Before we put some striping.
Yeah.
And get back to the tree thing too, that during swimming lessons, parents bring their kids to swimming lessons and then they sit on the trees.
Yep.
They get used a lot.
It's good shade.
It's good shade. They're pretty nice trees.
And you could ask Max Bradley when he was live. That thing, they pump out a lot of leaves.
Yeah.
And Tim
Well,
now.
they're getting big enough now to start to pick up the sidewalks there and stuff. So.
It is
Yeah.
picking up the sidewalks. But they're big trees and they're nice that way. They're also getting old and we get a lot of broken branches with every windstorm.
Locust.
I don't know what type of tree they are.
Leafy trees.
Yeah, leafy trees. Tim says we can get more trees as long as they don't have leaves on them.
I'm sure Tim will probably mow around them, but
Yeah.
you start to plan a new row to the north, so
Farther
that
up
in
here,
10 years, you could take those out
have a plan to,
and
Yeah.
kind of have something in place so people wouldn't feel quite so left out in the
I certainly think that
We're
is
done.
possible. Yeah.
Trying to think how Cammy does it down there, if that's part of their playground or whatnot. Their buses they go through a gate, like through the middle of their playground, a little bit buses.
In the
Yeah,
elementary.
they go up along the baseball field there and stuff.
Yeah.
It's kinda-
I don't know. I'd have to go down there and look at it. I could,
You know, just about in their
Right.
elementary school on Michigan Avenue, and they built it. It just comes in off their old roads and then they just come back out.
and JUB designed that, I think, if I understood correctly. John did that work
Like,
or
I
someone
keep
did that
looking at
work.
that going, well, that road that's, right in front of the gym, you almost could take a road right across past the pole and the buses wouldn't even be out.
Oh, just go
Just like
here.
the mouse goes.
Yeah.
The buses aren't out on near the street or anything.
It's not a very good spot to jump on the highway there,
Mhm.
because the traffic coming out of Vineland and that hill's right there,
You got a corner in the hill.
but,
You could force everybody to take a right.
yeah.
The buses and they can.
Oh, right
go back
only.
around.
But if we're taking some grass out.
I think Sean has dreams of building an auxiliary gym over there though.
Yeah, I know. I gotta find a spot for it. I do. I do. I think it's almost time.
I'm looking at that too, thinking your bus garage over there, we're not using that space. It's
Yeah.
a little more leveler, not trying to cram everything into the shop.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that was it. I don't know if there's any feedback or thoughts about parking, striping. Right now I'm moving forward because I think it's a good idea, but
I think if we have good blacktop that we can stripe decent, it's
worth doing.
worth it.
And
Right.
what people expect too, I think.
Mhm.
Thank you. The next item is mascot update.
Well, it's top secret. I'm gonna have to kill you if you show anyone, but we've been working with the designs. I'm gonna show you guys. We're not gonna roll this out officially yet because we're hoping to surprise the students on April, first week in April, April 7th. Any board members are welcome to come. I'll collect those again, because like I said, we're trying to keep them secret, but this is the work kind of back and forth with the designers that we've come up with. We're doing some additional work with them. I'm excited about kind of the rollout. It's been kind of slow talking to the tribe and working with them, but we've applied for 2 of their education grants, one for the elementary and one for the high school. Normally they only give 1 per school district, but I visited with them about perhaps approving 2 so a total amount of $20,000, and also expediting that process. So they're in the process. Those have been submitted already. They came out last Wednesday and I submitted it on Thursday, the application. And hoping that they can kind of move that forward with their executive council with some of the costs. Right now, we're using our own funds for this kind of design process. My hope and written into that grant is that it would purchase, not only the uniform cost that we have, which I think it would cover fully, but then also, t-shirts for every student is my hope, and some signage change and banner changes. And then also polo shirts for staff members, along with just some other kind of general stuff that needs updated and moving forward, stuff that maybe we didn't even have right now, as far as banners and some like outdoor tents and some other things like that would carry our mascot. So this has kind of been a back and forth process with this design company that's called School Webmasters, is who did the work, and kind of finding something that's just specific to us and that could be used for us. So anyways, it is moving forward, and excited to kind of roll it out. My thought is that we would do so Jackie's working with the ASB about an April rollout with the ASB. We would also live stream that so that people who are on, Facebook or YouTube would be able to see it. And then also, originally I was thinking graduation to kind of show people, but I actually think now that it would be fun to incorporate into our learning fair, assuming we're able to have it, so that some people in person, we would have a bit of a ceremony there, even though it would already be out at that point. people who maybe aren't on the web or just want to see something in person would be able to see it mid-May at the Learning Fair.
Okay, looks great.
Yeah.
So does that mean you'll be dressed up in the mascot?
Yeah, it might be.
Okay, next up is the K-12 principal report.
All right, well, maybe next month I'll have a hawk on there. And we'll see. We have conferences this week, the 10th and 11th, for K-6. All families have been scheduled. In the secondary, it's like 8th and juniors and some specific students, which we plan on kind of revising that a little bit for next year to make sure it's every grade gets at least one conference during the year. We have made this, last Friday was 110 days in school, in session, with minus a few of those COVID and snow days, but we're a lot further than a lot of schools across the country.
Mhm.
Staff events, our book studies continue. We are in Google Classroom with Dr. Brinkerhoff discussing trauma-informed teaching, and this is going to be going on through April. Some are virtual, some are face-to-face, depends on the groups and when people can meet. About halfway done with formal evaluations. They're continuing on. My goal is, it was a little scary last year when middle of March, I had to do some virtual kinds of things. So I'm trying to get this done before spring break, at least most of it. Virtual Knowledge Bowl for high school. The table below that I provided for you can see Nez Perce is still in first place out of 6 teams. It's going very well. Kids really enjoy doing it. It's just, we've learned a lot of different ways of doing things, and it's gone pretty well. I think Melanie was a little concerned about doing it at first, but she's jumped on and done really well. Sports, the junior high volleyball finished March 2nd. There were 17 girls playing 6th through 8th. For about 1.5 months, I asked Coach Caitlin what the celebrations were, and she said we have made 3 hits with attack multiple times. That was a big celebration, but they're really learned a lot of fundamentals, passing, serving, control, general operations of how volleyball works. And just watching them, it's been really fun to see how they've changed. High school track, 6 girls, 3 boys. Sean could probably fill you in there since he's the coach. High school baseball, Adam said he has 14 players, 7 from each school. So found my first hardball in the playground today, and that always happens in baseball too. It was kind of black, so I think it's been rolling in the mud. Adam took it back anyway. Clubs and CTE, junior high math counts. We had some junior high kids that took the test for the district, and Owen takes qualified for state. He takes that March 24th. So it might be a genetical thing. I'm not sure. FFA Community Appreciation Breakfast. It was a unplanned snow day, but still fed 95. So he had a pretty good turnout. And it was drive-through. There was no sit-down.
Drive-through.
Postal blood drive is the 16th. Tried to sign my husband up, but Casey told me today that they're kind of limiting. Either they're limited or they're full. And I think a lot of it's people want to know if they have that COVID.
Yeah,
They
it's
get
a free
the
test.
antibody test. So some of the hostess students will be taking the test this month. I believe there's 3 of them, testing in health fields. It happens every year. BPA state competitions start this week. Opening ceremonies are Wednesday. They go through Friday. They can still qualify for nationals. They don't know exactly, I don't think, how the nationals will work, but
I think they came out last week and said that this is going to be online.
it's on virtual. Okay.
No.
So the kids
They
are doing
didn't,
that.
but now they made a decision.
Okay. Elementary is a picture of our kindness counts. There's a tree, the ASB, actually there's some junior high girls made the tree for us, and the leaves are messages of what kind things were done or received, and the kids are really building this tree up. The elementary ASB has developed a whole month on kindness, and it's kind of a campaign that's gone around. They have all kinds of virtual activities, but we don't have to do those. We are combining them with Read Across America, so the week before spring break. So each week there's a couple things added to our week, and on the 24th, the 25th, they'll have a Crazy About Kindness Day where they get to dress up. They love doing that, and the reading games and those kinds of things. So we're excited about that. We had a virtual assembly that the ASB did. I just sent it to you at about 7 o'clock. And I thought maybe you'd come about, hit that pretty well. So you can check that out. I just seen your email. We'd be using the green screen, and the kids choose backgrounds. And so it's just a way for them to kind of get information out to their classmates. Junior, senior high, our coffee corner has finished for the year. We made about $300 after expenses. It was more of a service than it was a moneymaker, but it's nice to make some money on that as well. That will go into our leadership fund. Our KORT student of the month this month is Madison Brower. We asked the teachers, they have to be nominated by the high school teachers, and we look at our core lessons, and the core lesson that they chose for her was empathy, because she's very encouraging to others. And that will be up on the Big Country News this month for Madison. Mascot reveal, Sean said, was already going to happen in April. We'll have a committee working on that. And we're also going to have both the elementary and the high school ASB involved in that. So there's some things that we're waiting for, the t-shirts and the banners and things like that. So they're really excited about this process. I think because it took so long, there really is built up a lot of that anticipation, and staff's even asking to see too. So we'll see. KLEW is asked to be invited, so I will be calling them because they want to come up and do something with our school. Senior Citizen Coin Drive has begun. I'm going to ask the kids where they want to put their public container, because you'd asked about that last month, Ken. And the kids have been bringing in, it's just little pencil boxes that they just bring their money in every Friday. And then we have some people counting them, and we'll see how it goes. But they really want to do something local for our senior center. So to kind of help them. So we'll just keep doing that. Probably April, May, we'll see where we go. Prom is in the plans, May 1st. I'm not sure about dancing 6 feet apart or how we're going to do that yet. We will kind of figure that out as we go. We still don't know about inviting guests from other schools at this point. So we will cross that bridge as we get closer to the planning. And that's it. And I can do that. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Just a quick one. I wonder if KLEW was going to come up, if we ought not ask KIYE. That's a tribal radio station in Cameo.
Okay, what was the acronym for
KIYE. KIYE. Yeah.
Okay, good idea. I would think that was a good idea.
They don't do that much. They used to do a lot more community stuff, and they don't seem to do as much, but it would be worth asking. They have a new program manager.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, we'll move on to superintendent.
Hard to keep up with all the legislative stuff going on. I think you saw
It's the
from
greatest
Quinn.
legislative session in 25 years I've ever seen.
It is.
It's just,
You could sense it in Quinn's email today to the Idaho School Boards Association about this desire that the quicker we can get out of session, the better. Public school budget is up this Friday, I think, in JFAC, if you want to tune into that hearing. Lots of stuff going on. It's hard. The voucher bill, which I think severely impacts specifically rural schools by taking a dollar amount per student and giving it as a scholarship to either a private or even a homeschool, cooperative or something like that. I really think that impacts our funding level. And they're saying right now with this kind of federal flush of money that, well, don't worry, we're not impacting public schools, but the long-term damage from that is extensive, in my opinion. And that's probably the biggest single piece. There's also, some new legislation with mask requirements that takes any authority away from any elected jurisdiction to implement masks if they feel like it's necessary. Obviously, there's still a lot of wrangling going on with kind of trying to restrict the governor's role in future pandemics and putting it more on the legislature. All of these, though, are ongoing, and I tend to tune in to House Education Committee every morning. I missed it today because I was listening to another committee for a little bit. And then on the House floor, lots passing out of the House. Just as a reminder, with the Senate, which is oftentimes more favorable maybe to what would benefit public schools, we do have two senators that we actually have three senators in this region that serve on that Senate Education Committee, and two senators who serve constituents in our school district. That's Senator Carl Crabtree and Senator Dan Johnson, both serve on Senate Education Committee. So as board members, or even as the public in general, we do have a high level of kind of participation and on that committee. And so those are good people to contact as you have concerns about legislation. So one of the big things with JFAC, like Marcy referenced, we're still in this like land of not knowing. Last July, the governor implemented this 5% cutback, holdback. They're talking about reinstating it, but it's not kind of reinstating it it's not fully reinstating it. It's shifting some money back to that 5% cutback, but then actually cutting our discretionary per unit amount. So like she's saying, they're talking about refunding the leadership premiums, but then cutting just the discretionary dollars that we have per student by a significant amount, 20%-ish on that. And so, that could very well end, just back of the envelope calculations could be about a $40,000 hit when Marcy and I visit to our bottom line. I would prefer to we kind of had budgeted and planned for the way that they had it. They have their own reasons for changing it back, and I kind of doubt that that's going to change, but we'll see what JFAC decides to do with their final kind of appropriations recommendations. So that's on the docket. ISAT testing, we've had some staff members and classes have been getting a little bit of practice. It's been 2 years since kids have been in that system, and lots have changed. They've updated stuff. And so encourage staff in this last little bit to get some practice in. Just, it's not that we're prepping just for the test by doing that, but it is when you know the platform that you're using, when you know how to click and move the mouse and get to certain places, and some of the tools like highlighting text and other things like that, it's an advantage just to have that set. And then it really is a test of your knowledge, not a test of how well you can navigate their portal. Things look good. I know all around the state, people are really nervous about where things will fall out. And certainly there's been some struggle. Jackie and I were just talking today about, kind of changing, and I think we've been doing it throughout the year, but changing that mindset from, our kids are so harmed, maybe they lost last year some when we were in online learning, to just, and I think we've been doing this throughout the year, but just where are they right now and how do we need to help them? So less focused on where they are. And I expect to see that. Do I expect a dip in overall ISAT scores? Probably, just because of the online learning and some of the other disruptions. But I think we're in a really good place that way. The reading performance we track, and the math in the elementary we track using iStation, which does the IRI, but then this year we also contracted with them to do a math assessment as well. Those teachers test their kids every month, and so it really gives good real-time data. I know sometimes the teachers fret a little if it doesn't quite go up like they think their line should on a month-to-month basis, but I can tell you as administrators, when I'm watching that and our students are hitting their growth targets, and what I like, and I included it in there in this picture, is the steady growth. And when you have kids that are in that 2 or 3 range, and would be like a class average, and now they've moved up into that kind of fully proficient, and you can see it at all grade levels that we've now moved as far as a class average up into that proficient, that it shows me exactly what I want to see. Certainly there are going to be little ups and downs throughout the year, and learning reading is a tough tough thing to do. But very proud of the teachers and their work, and just kind of that, we really like being able to see that data real time and make adjustments if needed. Jackie covered events and other activities. I did want to mention just a little bit, and again, this isn't board action, but I visited with Quinn a couple of weeks ago about trap shooting. It's something that I've been interested in before in the past. I reached out to several school districts that Quinn had maybe mentioned from talking to people at the gun club. I still think it's something worthy of pursuing. It took a while. Deary and Troy got back to me, and they said that they've never really had it associated with the school, that it was just a club that actually the gun club ran for kids. But just yesterday or over the weekend, I guess, the Orfino superintendent got back to me and said that it's something that he actually had almost ready to go at Orfino as far as a school club, and kind of had already done a lot of the conversations with like the ISBA regarding policy and liability insurance. And then when COVID hit, they just kind of stopped. But so he kind of threw out there to me, like, if you want to start a conversation, we could start talking about the work that he had already done, and then to see if Orfino can move forward and Nez Perce can move forward as well. I think, when I was talking to Quinn, it's like anything that's good for kids and that kids want to do. It's one of my arguments for like when we started the cross country program. We do want to be, smart with taxpayer money, but things that are relatively low cost, like cross country or, potentially trap shooting, if you're not getting into the investment of equipment or you pass that off just to kids, could be operated at potentially a pretty low cost and be a positive experience for kids. And, it might be a different group of kids than what we're serving with basketball and football that would be interested in doing something like that, and a good lifelong skill. So just putting that on your radar, that I'm starting to have conversations about that. I gave you the parking lot update, and then Andrea is working this year. I've kind of solely tasked her. She needs some things to do. I'm not sometimes very good at like handing stuff out, but so I've asked Andrea, as she's working on her internship, to kind of take charge of the continuous improvement planning day. It's April 23rd. If you want to mark your calendars on that. In the past, we've had a board member or two attend. It's a morning session. So it's like, and Andrea has it. I mean, we've still got some time here to develop it, but I think it would be helpful to her. And then we can go from there. So about 8 o'clock to noon, and we feed participants, and we can kind of move forward from there. Jackie also mentioned prom. I just wanted to kind of share my thinking. Right now, currently, we would follow district policy. If that means masks, then masks. My thought is that obviously the social distancing piece is out. I kind of, I don't know. It's still a little, 2 months away. There's still kind of hope that it could just be a regular prom, but I think, when Jackie and I have conversations, we want to just kind of temper it and not over promise what we can do right now. Same thing with like inviting. We kind of gave them a date when we would make a decision about whether or not out of district students could attend. And graduation also is something on my, as we plan, and when people ask me, I'm like, I think for the most part, our graduation will be relatively normal. Basically masks at this point is the only thing that I think might still be up in the air. We'll just continue to watch it though, and see where it goes. The other piece that I wanted to share that's kind of come in recently too is Kyle Stapleton's been working really hard on getting some grant money to put a barn that would be shared by, it's FFA obviously, but also by like 4-H kids who maybe live in town or don't have a place to keep an animal. So it wouldn't exclusively be an FFA barn. He got a quote for just the metal building itself, not the construction. And of course, with construction prices going up, it's gone up ever since. But we were awarded an $11,000+ grant from the Farm Bureau. That was kind of not enough to pay for it, but getting there. Since that grant, he's had multiple donations. So Pat Johnson, Marcy's mom, has donated a significant amount of money to help that. Ben and Kim Orndorff have donated money that she was a prime. And they live in the Seattle area, and their daughter attended the first semester here. Who's the other person that I mentioned on Facebook? I can't remember now. Yep, Scott and Callie Zenner. I want to give them a shout out for donating to it. And then today, he also let me know that Kyle and Marcy are donating to the project, a very significant amount of money. And then Marty and Jennifer Lux. And so we really are getting close to that point where that building could be ordered. And we'd have the metal and all the pieces here to kind of get that started. He's got the road in with all that base rock and everything using the previous grant that we had. So that work kind of continues, and just amazing generosity from our community and people that are willing to step up and help benefit these kids with that Ag Science Center. So that is what I have for my report.
Thank you. Any questions? Comments? Okay, good. Then we're done. Someone would like to make a motion to adjourn.
To adjourn.
Thank you. So second,
I'll second.
thank you. Any discussion? Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Anybody leaving? We're all leaving. Thank you very much, board. Thank you, everyone, staff, members, visitors. Have a good week.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you.